are eaten, Thanksgiving is behind us, the holiday season, more specifically the Christmas season, has officially started. And it has started whether you celebrate Christmas or not, because it is hard to escape. And why would you want to escape it? It's the most wonderful time of the year, with the kids jingle belling and everyone telling you, be of good cheer. Everyone telling you, be of good cheer. Don't be a Grinch. And yet, for some of us, that might be hard. What for some people is legitimately the most wonderful time of the year might for others be a bittersweet time, tinged with grief, anger, resentment, regret, depression, isolation, or some related mix of emotions. Maybe for some of us, it's just this year that the holidays weigh heavily. For others, it might be an annual recurrence. And for others yet, this season might be a mixed bag of both joy and tears and lots of deep breathing. Whatever it is that you bring into the sanctuary, you are welcome here, and your feelings are welcome here. And if your heart is filled with nothing but pure joy, you too are welcome, and I appreciate it for holding space for those who need it. Now, as you sat down, you may have noticed a tiny little pebble on your seat. If you haven't yet brushed it down to the ground, I ask that you hold on to it. You will need it later. And if you don't have it anymore, not to worry, we will make sure that you have one as the time comes. Welcome. Let us be together.
Reindeer and singing songs of joy and peace. I wish I had a river I could skate away on. It don't snow here, stays pretty green. I'm gonna make a lot of money, then I'm gonna quit this crazy scene. I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I wish I had a river so long I would teach my feet to fly. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I made my baby cry. Tried hard to help me, he put me at ease. Loved me so naughty, made me weak in the knees. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I'm so hard to handle, I'm selfish and I'm sad now. I've lost the best baby that I ever had. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on. I wish I had a river so long I would teach my feet to fly. Oh, I wish I had a river I could skate away on.
It is now time for our Time for All Ages, which is going to be done by Judith Stemper. So I invite all the children who want to come up here for a story.
You all look nice and warmly dressed today. You warm? Did y'all have breakfast? Is there food at your house? Probably. I have a letter here that a story written by a little girl named Layla, and her family, they don't necessarily have warm clothes or enough food in their house. So I want to tell you what Christmas seems like from her point of view. Hi, my name is Layla. I'm 13 years old. I live with my mom and dad, 2 brothers and 2 sisters very close to here in Santa Ana. My dad has had a really hard life. He was an orphan when he was really young, which meant his mom and dad couldn't take care of him. And he has a lot of bad memories that he doesn't like to talk about. He was really depressed and he started drinking while he was still a young man. It was really hard for my mom, and he left us for a while and he was homeless. Now he's been sober for over a year and he came back to live with us. He goes to AA and NA meetings every week where he learns how to be sober. He's working very hard to be a better father and a husband, and we're all very happy that he's safe and living back with us. My dad got a job at a car wash, and since it doesn't pay very well, he tries to work as many hours as he can. Sometimes he works 65 hours in a week. My mom works in an office. Even though we never had very much money, they saved up and they're able to rent a little house. We're kind of squeezed in, and we don't have a lot of things most people have, but we're happy to be together. My brothers and sisters and I try not to ask my parents for things because we know they don't have a lot of money. We all get breakfast and lunch at school, but sometimes there isn't anything to eat at night. We have clothes, but they're usually from the thrift store, and they don't really fit very well, and they're kind of worn out. When the school asked my mom if we'd like to be part of adoptive family, she almost started crying. She doesn't want us to know how worried she gets. Thank you for helping my family. We all want to get good grades in school so we can get good jobs when we grow up and help my mom and dad so they don't have to work so hard. Hopefully, we will be able to help someone else just like you helped us. So we have our adoptive family. We have 2 families here, and information is out at 2 tables. You can look for the little tree and get information about how you can help support these 2 families. This year, Rika and I and Jan are helping organize this, so ask us if you have any questions. Thank you very much. Is from Andrea Hawkins. She's one of my seminary buddies and a really, really dear friend of mine. It's called Light the Flame in You, a Solstice Reflection. In a few weeks, winter solstice will be upon us. The long dark will reach its zenith, and for the briefest of moments it
will seem as if the Holy King's reign will be eternal. On that night of the longest dark, we will light a gifted log of flame, remember the ancestors, and tell stories that bind us together as people. Many different faith traditions mark the winter solstice as a holy day. From the Germanic tribes, we have the Yule traditions honoring the past. From the Syrians, we have Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. The Christians celebrate the birth of Christ, and the Hindus begin a 5-day festival in honor of Lord Ganesha. The solstice is a very special, very holy time, regardless of how we approach it. The solstice is also a time of hope. Winter has never been a good season for me mentally, and the solstice celebrates a time of reassurance that even the deepest of my depressive cycles will end. It is a holy day of renewal that comforts me as I look to the wheels turning. There was a place near my old home in Louisville where the lines in the layers of limestone were visible everywhere you looked. Some winter solstice, when I was at my lowest, I would go out into the wildest places near the river before sunrise. I would spend those moments before light returned, waiting quietly in the darkness. As sunrise broke across the limestone, the lines between those layers would darken and deepen. As the limestone changed colors in the sunlight, those lines reminded me that all things change. All darkness has a light behind it, and all light has a darkness that fuels it. That is what solstice means to me. The solstice is a time to look back upon my ancestors, gather my family and friends close, and rejoice. It is a renewed time of hope and resurrection. For just as Ariana's wheel turns and the Oak King resumes his rightful place, so we must go on. Let us gather then, sing songs of our childhood, songs of our parents and our children, of our friends and of our families. Let us gather, huddle close, and light the log of community. Let us feast and revel, and let us always remember that there is hope, always. Be blessed, y'all. Be blessed.
Oh,
When I first came to the US, I was quite dazzled by the American holiday season. I was not actually here for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I flew back to Germany for that and would keep doing so for years to come. But even just witnessing the time leading up to it and then hearing what my friends had to say afterwards, it was dazzling, glittery, full of poppy or jazzy Christmas music, extravagant decorations, lavishly wrapped presents, and glamorous parties. I loved it, and I still do. And it was also quite strange to me, and still is. Christmas in Germany is also a lovely time. In fact, the whole Advent season is. It is filled with making crafts, baking cookies, lighting candles, and Christmas music, though not quite as poppy. But it's definitely not a party. In fact, while it's a celebratory time, it is also in many ways quiet, reflective, and sometimes even a little solemn. This is not to say that things aren't happening. There are many Christmas traditions that are widely shared and others that are unique to individual families. In fact, the Christmas traditions in my family started around noon on Christmas Eve and lasted until the evening of the second Christmas Day, also known as December 26th, because one Christmas Day is clearly not enough. And the second Christmas Day is also still a holiday in Germany, which makes the celebrating on that day easier. And I even remember when I was quite little, we started even earlier, in the morning of Christmas Eve, when my parents would put on my puffy winter coat and ushered me out the door into the cemetery, where we would visit my grandmother's grave. I never questioned this or thought twice about it. And I also didn't question when, after a couple of years, we stopped going. At this time, my sister was born, and I just assumed that getting two small kids to the cemetery before a 48-hour Christmas extravaganza, albeit a reflective one, was probably a little much. It was only much, much later that I put together that the years when we went to the cemetery on Christmas Eve must have been the years right after my grandmother's death. I was 3 when she died, and my mom was in her early 30s, younger than I am now. She must have missed her mother so much. My grandmother passed away just as Advent was about to begin. And to this day, my mother talks about the Christmas presents she got for her and how much she regrets trying to save them for Christmas Eve, rather than giving them right away. My grandmother died before she got to unwrap her presents. It makes sense to me now that my mother needed to be with her mom on Christmas Eve, those years following her death. And it also makes sense that after a few years had passed, the need became a little less urgent. We still went to the cemetery during Advent, just not on Christmas Eve. I also remember that when my beloved grandfather died, a few weeks after my 10th birthday, and also in the beginning of Advent, the Christmas that followed did not even register as Christmas for me. I have no memories of it, except the day when we visited his grave the weekend before Christmas Eve, and I stood there by his graveside, sobbing loudly. Christmas without my Opa was quite unimaginable. Grief over the loss of a loved one is always stifling, but it can be so especially during the holidays, when not only it seems that everyone else is surrounded by their loved ones, but when we feel the absence of those we lost all the more because suddenly they're not a part anymore of our Christmas traditions, altering the DNA of our own familiar festivities forever. Some of us might also grieve those who left us willingly, left us behind heartbroken and gasping to move on to someone new. Maybe they took the kids with them, leaving us all by ourselves. We may grieve because we are lonely over the holidays, always at the mercy of friends to make room at their tables, because our family is far, far away, or because our family rejects us, our authentic selves. Especially queer youth and young adults deal with this pain quite often during the holidays. Or maybe we are with our family, yet even in their midst, we feel so very alone, so very anxious, so very alienated. Maybe the holidays break our heart because all we want is to start a family of your own, to partake in all the merriment with your own child, but that child is just not coming. The holidays can also be a time of struggle and the anxiety that brings. Financial struggle, when Christmas just doesn't seem like something that we can afford. Struggle for those with social anxiety who are expected to show up with a bright smile on their face when all they want is to hide until the season of everyone telling you to be of good cheer is finally over. And it can also be a really, really, really hard time for those struggling with sobriety. Christmas season is hard for those who also celebrate, but they celebrate different holidays. It's hard to celebrate a holiday when yours is always secondary, when you feel like this one particular holiday, Christmas, is getting shoved down your throat whether you want it or not. And for some of us, it is that there's just so much to do, so much running and rushing, decorating, present wrapping, traveling, cooking, organizing, surprising, that when we finally find a moment to stop and enjoy the season, it's January 7th and time to clean up. And for some of us, it is the hypocrisy of an increasingly commercialized consumer culture that seems to be in exact opposition to celebrating the birth of a brown baby born to poor parents in an oppressive regime. How do we celebrate, partake in the dazzle when our hearts are broken by detention camps at the southern border, by Hong Kong protests, by Brexit, by forests burning and ice caps melting? When in response to every crisis, our communities seem splintered and divided, even in how to bind up each other's wounds, and careless words are flung like rocks out of our own glass houses. In these times, Christmas can sometimes feel like the dazzle of the grand ballroom of the Titanic, with the band playing on even as we are sinking. What icebergs can lurk amidst the celebrations, for some of us small and easily navigated, for others so large we fear they may sink us. With all that in mind, I would like to lead you in a short meditation now. And for that, you will need this little pebble, this little rock that was placed on your chair. If you don't have one, please raise your hand and the ushers will get you one. Keep this little rock in your right hand as you root your feet firmly into the ground and find a position that you're comfortable in. Close your eyes and soften your gaze. And then allow yourself to think about the things, may they be big or small, that weigh heavily on you this season. Struggles, losses, concerns. Allow yourself, in the safety of this sanctuary, to lean into this feeling. And then I would like you to go into your body and look for the place where this feeling, where your struggle or anxiety of grief manifests itself. Maybe a tightness in your throat, a knot in your stomach, or tense shoulders. Maybe tears pressing against your closed eyelids, or your pulse throbbing in your wrists. Maybe a stiffness in your arms and legs, a feeling that you need to hold on to this stiffness, that letting go would melt you completely. Or maybe a hurting heart. Locate that feeling and sit with it. Lean into it. Breathe into it. In and out. In and out. See if the feeling is changing. Is there something softening? Something warming? Or maybe cooling? Or loosening? And then very slowly, still using your breath, see if you can start moving it. Shake it loose a little, carefully. And then start rolling it towards your right hand holding the rock. Slowly and gently experience this feeling, this activation wander through your body until you reach your right shoulder, your upper arm, your elbow, until the feeling travels down your forearm and is in your hand with the little rock. And now infuse the rock with that feeling. Let it leave your body and enter the rock in your hand, your fingers still closed around it. And then just hold it there, gently and safely in your closed hand. And slowly, very slowly, and still holding the rock, return to us and to this room. We will now pass this box around, and I ask you that you place your pedal into it, and with it the burden that you carry and the activation it causes in your body. And as this box is wandering from hand to hand, we will be carrying the burdens placed into it together. There is a saying that many of us have heard before or even said before. If we share our joy, it multiplies. If we share our sorrow, it will be divided. I believe this to be true for joy, but I'm not sure that it always works as easily for sorrow. Sometimes our sorrow just is. And yet, maybe this box, filled with all of our sorrows, big and small, can be a reminder for you that you're not alone. We may not have shared all of our burdens out loud, but we shared this moment. And as the box was passed around, we carried our burdens together. We will leave this box on our joys and sorrow table, and it will remain there for the season, surrounded by the warmth of this community. I've recently come across a quote by Jamie Anderson. Grief, I've learned, is really just love. It is all the love you want to give but cannot. All that unspent love gathers up in the corners of your eyes, the lump in your throat, and in that hollow part of your chest. Grief is just love with no place to go. May the love of this community soften the lumps in your throats and fill the hollow in your chest. May you know that in this sanctuary your sorrows are held in love. And may we all remember that during this holiday season, that without darkness there can be no light. And without grief and despair, there can be no hope. May we be blessed with dazzle, but also with the moments of reflection and stillness to hold it all. The dark and the light, the despair and the hope. The love that flows as tears from our eyes, and the love of community that surrounds us and holds us all. May it be so, and blessed be.
Please rise in body of spirit.